H-Farm. This is a magical place that are full of startups, crops, rivers, technologies. You should all be very lucky to get invited to H-Farm someday. And so this is Maurizio, and also a small piece of advice about Maurizio. If you get hungry easily, then don't look at his Instagram account, because there is a lot of decadent food over there. Next one up is Mirav Rotem. Yes, Mirav Rotem Nauman, I'm sorry. She's the head of Nautilus at AOL, one of the early employees of Better Place, where she held both operational and fundraising related responsibilities. Mirav knows a thing or two about ambitious startups. As Nautilus CEO, Mirav's job is to make sure our startups know that someone has their back. That's nice. Next up is Moshe Friedman, co-founder at Kamatech. Moshe belongs to one of the most illustrious rabbinical families in the Haredi, ultra-Orthodox world. At the age of 30, Moshe founded Clipo, a startup company in the online video field, and later on became a social entrepreneur, heading Haredi integration into the Israeli workforce, especially the high-tech industry. Moshe also co-founded Kamatech to help Haredis integrate into the high-tech industry. I would like to welcome Fadi Suidan, the director of the Nazareth Business Incubator and Accelerator. Fadi is responsible to encourage entrepreneurship and innovation among the Arab community, seeking to bridge the technological entrepreneurship gap between the two communities. And last but not least is Uri Alin, manager at Shmone 8200. Uri Alin, a social entrepreneur, founded and is the manager of the 8200 social program, formerly the manager of Education Circles, a non-profit organization which operated learning centers in schools in South Tel Aviv and Holon. We're going to have an amazing time.
Okay, thank you, Tal. So, pleasure to be here. It's my third time here. I'm moderating the panel here at DLD Tel Aviv. We have special people here on stage, and before we begin, I wanted to say a few words about the accelerator. So the first accelerator in the world was opened 10 years ago in the US. It's called the Y Combinator, and it's kind of the biggest one is still there is, most famous one. The co-founder, Paul Graham, said 4 years ago that they're getting just over one application per minute from startup to join the application. I guess today is much more. I guess you heard about Dropbox and Airbnb. They started there as an accelerator startup. Just to get some numbers about the accelerator before we start here. As of January this year, there were more than 300 accelerators just in the US. It's more than 100 accelerators in Europe. And I guess there is almost 20, maybe more here in Israel. Every month we covering the tech industry here in Israel. Every month there is a new accelerator. The last one was, I think, Yahoo opened their first accelerator around the world here in Israel. Also Samsung opened another accelerator here in Israel. And something very funny, there is an accelerator in a kibbutz in the south of Israel. It's called Hamat Gera. And it's an all-inclusive resort, so you get meals and you get a room for about 3 or 4 months. So, after this brief about accelerators, let's start at the beginning. Asking a general question here, all the panelists, about accelerators. I said just the numbers of accelerators around the world and here in Israel. Do you think we have too many accelerators here in Israel and in the world? Is it too much already, or it's still relevant to open an accelerator? Someone? Oh.
Thank you. Well, if I will take it to the Arab community here in Israel, was a very unique experience to begin an acceleration program, especially that the Arab entrepreneurs are not part of the high-tech or the high-tech scene here in Israel. They are lagging behind two main segments, the finance and the high-tech. The project, when we launched it as an incubator, and after that we decided to overcome the main obstacles we are facing, or our entrepreneurs are facing. We have to launch also an accelerator. So to have it the first one in the Arab community here working, I think it was very good experience, and we need a lot of more. It's not too much.
My opinion is that Accelerator belongs to the startup economy, which is a very young economy, very dynamic economy. If we consider Accelerator, they just define what they do, since really what is the activities that an accelerator do. And behind an accelerator is a program. The program is the most important thing. And if we consider the variety of the ecosystems around the world, the verticals, the cultures, the needs, is now corporates are walking through these programs, investors. So I think it's not looking just at the number, because of course, in a large number there are several that maybe it's always a matter of how you execute. So some accelerator will do good. And doing good, it means adapting to the new evolution of the ecosystem. But definitely, I don't see like, is it correct? I don't see much the numbers, but how the evolution, how they're going to change. So definitely say, I don't see a big number. I see we can also increase it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I also think that, when you said accelerator maybe a year and a half ago, it meant probably one thing. It's like a Y Combinator model, but even if you look here, like we all do very different things, and we all try to accelerate, the success of startups. And so I think what we're seeing, even though there are more and more programs opening, each one is finding a different niche to answer a need that's coming up. So this early stage, like MBA for startups is covered, and so now there are accelerators getting more in like when you're a year old and you're trying to find your bridge, bridge funding round, and so et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's not like there's a lot that they're doing all the same, and that's the nice thing about it. It's like it's the answer of the market to the needs that come up from the market. So I think there's more. There's room for more.
Okay, so I have a few points here. First point, accelerators today, it's not only for the entrepreneurs, but more than that, for big organizations that wants to bring innovation. Companies like Microsoft, Cisco, Citibank, also governments. I'm part of a group of digital leaders in the government, and now the government are all going to open accelerator inside the government to bring innovation to the government. Today, accelerator is not only for entrepreneurs, but also for the big organizations that are seeking innovation, seeking the new ideas, the cutting-edge technologies. So accelerators go both sides. But I want to emphasize the point of Fadi, especially for underprivileged groups, like the Arabs in Israel or the ultra-Orthodox. There's a special need in accelerator programs because we see a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that want to be part of the startup ecosystem, part of like a startup nation, but they don't know how to do it. We have a lot of talent, we have a lot of innovation, but they don't know how to do it, and the accelerator for such groups, it's super important to bring the knowledge to other groups. Just for example, we did last 2 weeks ago a tour for our for the entrepreneurs who participated in our accelerator, a tour all over Israel to really see the ecosystem from inside. We visited all the big VCs, all the big incubators, accelerators, international companies, small companies. They really need to know the ecosystem. It's super important for them in order for them to succeed.
You mentioned Fadi and what you are doing. The ultra-Orthodox and the Arabs, do you see it as the future workforce for the tech industry? So getting the additional employees that are so important for this industry to the next future, the next few years?
I think we must see it this way, because if no, we don't have any hope. 50% of the kids in Israel in the first grade today are either Arabs or ultra-Orthodox. 50%. So this is not minorities anymore. This is almost the majority of the country. If these populations, the ultra-Orthodox and the Arabs, will not be part of the high-tech industry, we are in a deep problem. And so our program is to help Zika, my partner, and Fadi work a lot in the Arab society, and now we started work with the ultra-Orthodox society. We must bring them, and we have no choice. There's not a question of choice. We need to do it.
You want to add something?
Well, I think it's very important for us. It was our main mission was somehow to find the ways to transform the Arab economy and engage it with the Israeli economy. It was very important. So when we began the acceleration programs, from one hand, it was very important to us to facilitate the know-how of our entrepreneurs. And from the other hand, to engage them with the VCs and angels and what is going on here in Tel Aviv, in the startup nation in Tel Aviv. Since we began, I think the social impact we are trying to do is really beginning, because after us, there's 3 or 4 accelerators now running in the Arab society with a lot of other NGOs and Citibank and others that see that from one hand we have a lot of entrepreneurs with good ideas, innovation ideas, and they need this help to connect them with the right mentors, with the right angels and the right VCs, so we can really break the youth gap between the Arabs and the Jewish.
I just want to say something from my personal experience. I think the issue is not just providing more workforce. I think, and that's from personal experience, you have very, very talented entrepreneurs both in the Haredi community and in the Arab community. I've known a few. You've got Avigdor, you've got Rabbi Azayu. You have a lot of good entrepreneurs, and the problem is not just, it's not the lack of workforce that they can fulfill. It's helping those bright, talents bridge difficulties that are not their fault, that are fault of the way things work today. So I think that's the main focus of these programs.
Uriah, you're coming from the social program of 800 unit. It was the first accelerator here in Israel, the EISP. And now you're doing the social program. Social impact is something that we heard a lot about in the last year or last 2 years. We talk about the social impact of communities here in Israel. What you are doing that is different from other accelerators?
Well, actually, we had the opportunity and the privilege to enter a field which is amazing, and it's growing very fast abroad. But here in Israel, it was still very, very immature, very first steps. And what we do is we work with ventures that use technology in order to help society, meaning that their first goal is creating an impact. All of them are also creating revenue. All of them are good competitors for every funding vehicle in that matter. They have other problems that they have to deal with. And for me, the best thing is that we have the chance to act as an accelerator in the very early stages of an industry, meaning we're actually a big part of the capacity building of the ecosystem building by helping both create the deal flow, which is still not as varied and large as in the regular startup ecosystem, and on the other hand, convince investors that there is a deal flow and there are investing opportunities. So that's what we do.
Okay. A question to Maurizio and Merav also. Let's talk a little bit about the corporate accelerators. Maurizio, you are in H-Farm, you're working with, you're doing some kind of white labeling accelerators, as I understand. And Merav, after that, what's also about AOL?
Yeah, we have 10 years, and we've been founded, as I say, 2 months earlier than Y Combinator. And during the evolution of the ecosystem, especially our ecosystem, which is pretty different than the Israeli one and the United States, we always paid a lot of attention to the corporates. We always had a relationship with the companies, entrepreneurs, but we never been able to find a way to engage those companies which are based on low-tech business model. Most of the companies that surround us in most of the sector, they have low-tech culture. And visiting us, it was not easy to connect them with the start. By the last 2 years, we started to engage them with a number of programs like hackathons, multidisciplinary hackathons, to get them closer to the culture of the high-tech and the culture of the digital entrepreneurship, which is completely different than an employee that want to go to solve a problem, that is hired to solve a problem for a company. So,
by the way, can you mention a few of the companies?
Yeah, I can mention companies we deal. It's like Luxottica, it's Technogym. Technogym is good. I can take some example. It's a fitness, wellness leader, market leader, and we started. This is actually the second program we're doing, and we involve quite a lot of the companies to participate into the life of the accelerator. We brief together what they are looking for, and we spread around through the accelerator networks, through different, we have access to different communities, and we involve them with open days, with activities for selections. So for the first time, a corporate, it's trying to retrieve from outside the company the solution to their problems. So we keep them very tight to the whole process. We use the activities, the know-how we have with the accelerator, that usually our accelerator works for the investment program, which is a seed at the early stage. In this case, companies are not seed at the early stage, are approved companies, but we use the environment to let those entrepreneurs to adapt their technology, their product, to fit into the problem of the company. Sometimes it means building a business unit, or build a new company because they can bring in a service for a company that produces products, for example, which is very different. And that's successful. So we're starting now the second program. We just received 250 new applications. It's very restricted, brief. We're going to have next week an open day. We work for 2 weeks with the corporates together to select 60 out of 250, then we're going to meet all entrepreneurs, all people, and then out of those 60, we're going to take 6 that are going to make these programs. It's going to be 3 months in the company, 1 month inside the corporate. Maybe nothing happened, so the company feel free, you know, that we did a program and maybe they're not satisfied, so they have not to fire anybody, they're not to take care to the whole stuff. So I think it's a good opportunity for accelerators and also for corporates, because corporates, they don't need to create a corporate program, they don't need to create an accelerator. Only few tech companies can do this one, but consider companies that are large, they're not high tech, they are low tech, so they need to be helped. Yes. Is that okay?
Now, how it's going in AOL? It's 1 year old, the Nautilus, right?
Yeah, so we started Nautilus, our first few companies came in June 2014, it's a little bit over a year. You know, AOL has acquired a few Israeli companies throughout the years, and most of them was really, really successful. And contributed a lot to the strategy of the company, a company that was in turnaround in the last 5 years. And so AOL understands something incredible is happening in Tel Aviv, and they wanted to be closer to the market, closer to the startups when it's all happening in the beginning. And there's of course also the element of all the greater entrepreneurs that started here and then were part of AOL that wanted to give back to the community. So the way we work, we're not really an accelerator in the sense that we don't have waves of companies, we don't have classes, no demo day. We work with startups for between 8 months and a year, so it's a longer term work. And there's no curriculum. So startups that join our program, we joined our seed round and we put a substantial amount. So you compare to your usual accelerator, we put 125K in the seed round. We join seed rounds, and then companies work with us for almost a year. And it's more of a pull program than a push program. There's no curriculum, but rather startups sit at our office. That's their workplace, and then whatever they want us to do. We have like a weekly meeting that's, the whole point of the meeting is give me action items, what can I do for you? So when we started it, the thought was, what do we bring to the market? We bring the bridge to the US, and we bring a lot of entrepreneurs in the system that can help the startups, because AOL in the last 5 years has brought a lot of companies around the globe. And so there's a lot of entrepreneurs within AOL that it's not only that they know what it is to be an entrepreneur and can help, they want to work with entrepreneurs because it kind of brings them back to their days as entrepreneurs. And so we were looking for startups a little bit later than your typical accelerator phase. So usually startups that join us are just about to close their seed round. They have either a beta or a first product that we can start helping them to market making, because that's our strength. We have the connection to the US. We have customers. We have tools that they can try their product on. So that's where we focus. And one more thing we focus on, which I think is unique, is product. So when we started looking into the market, our thought was, Israel used to do a lot of enterprise IT and cyber, and we do more and more consumer. But we do it only in the last few years. We haven't been doing it for a long time. And when you look at teams, if you look at a founding team in Israel versus a founding team in the Silicon Valley, the one big difference is that you have in the Silicon Valley, in almost every founding team of a startup that's consumer targeted, there's a product person that comes from a UX perspective. And unfortunately, in Israel, we don't have enough of that experience. So what we did is brought it in. We brought a full-time, top expert in product and UX with experience in Europe and in the US and B2B, B2C, and web mobile. And she actually works with all of the startups on their product. So we bring them that expertise in that early stage where they're still in Israel just before they're moving to the US, and we don't necessarily have the ability to hire that talent. Just one more thing you asked about corporate, what's unique about corporate versus private. I would say that we can go deeper. So because we're looking at startups that are in our side of the world in terms of business, instead of breadth, we have depth, right? We have people that are experts in the domains that we're looking at that can help the startups, that startups can, we can potentially be a design partner for a startup, we can potentially be their first customer, we can help them raise money or get their next partner. So I think that's the big difference between your private accelerator and your corporate one.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for all of you. Usually the accelerator programs are 3-4 months. Do you think it's enough for startups in Israel or in Italy or other places? Is it enough time for him to accelerate, to scale up?
Well, for us, it's all the acceleration programs, I call it's the pre-acceleration actually. It's to prepare our entrepreneurs to be part of the next stage like to join the Microsoft Accelerator, the Dimension, or maybe the 8200 Accelerator, to prepare them to this stage, or to have the first seed investment they need, especially from the grants of the Chief Scientist Office?
I think it really depends on the stage that you're looking for in a venture when you're accepting it. In the social program we're aiming, we're accepting only ventures that already have a prototype or a proof of concept, which helps us be more positive about the chances that those 4 months of acceleration would actually be productive. I think if you take ventures that are on an earlier stage, then development a lot of the time becomes the biggest barrier that prevents them from actually gaining the full potential from those programs.
About timing, I think that we have to think about programs, and programs can be designed in different ways according, if I'm talking about seed program starting from scratch and preparing a team for a demo day with a prototype. There are some pretty standardized process, and 3 months are usually the time that most of accelerators use. If I'm dealing for a B2B or if I'm dealing for a corporate, sometimes it could be longer. It depends also the ecosystem. In Italy, I have the acceleration from A to C, which is 3 months, but then from C to L is an extra 3 months. So if I see the cycle to bring a team from scratch to, I would say, sustainable level, but to a reasonable proof level, it usually takes 1 year. So then it depends, with the ecosystem, because sometimes getting out from the accelerator of 3 months, getting the demo day, if the accelerator is backed or very related with investors and VCs, their job is creating deal flow, funneling, getting the best, try to get the next Airbnb, so stay concentrated in the 3 classes of 3 months, and then moving to the next one, and then giving the class to the investor. If you are in a different country with a different ecosystem where there is few investors, maybe you have to take longer and try to support in a different way also to the growth stage for those companies, so the period is going to be longer. But it's no longer acceleration program, it's a more growth program. So I see more differences,
I want to say that in our accelerator, which is a totally different accelerator, we're doing it like, I think, 10x accelerator. What we are doing, we put each company that join our program inside a big, successful startup. We have big startups in Israel, all of them over $1 billion startups, like Wix, Tabula, Outbrain, Plarium, etc. And each one of them is hosting a startup company for 4 months. And the CEO of the big startup is the mentor of the small startup. And all the management team of the big startup is the mentors for the small startup. So they are surrounded all the time by mentors, by environment for successful startup. And Avishai Abrami, the CEO of Wix, told me this is not accelerator, this is 10x accelerator, because it's all the time they're surrounded by a successful startup. And we believe that what we do, which is, by the way, invention by my partner Avrami, who's sitting there in the crowd, he invented this model. This is the next generation of accelerators, because we are not taking a company and mentor them, but we really put them inside the industry. It's not inside corporates, it's inside successful startups, and they really learn from the best top expert in the industry.
So the companies don't sit together and listen to lectures? And
once a week they all meet and they listen to lectures, but all the other time they're sitting, each one of them in the big startups. And we use collaboration tools by Cisco donated collaboration tools, so they can use to do meetings, like video conferencing, etc. But they're sitting, each one of them, inside a big startup. And I believe this is the next generation, because they say the need is the father of invention. We started it because we didn't have funding to fund a place, but eventually we realized this is the best way to accelerate companies. And we see the fast growth of these companies that join our accelerator. It's unbelievable. And more than that, they start doing business with the big companies that host them. So all of them are doing business with them, all kind of different business, so they become like design partners or what, maybe investors, in one case investor. So we believe this is the next generation. So you can say Y Combinator is the first generation of like 0.1, and Kamatech is the 0.2 accelerators.
Okay. I have a question for you. Moshe said that the startups don't usually sit together, of the ultra-orthodox. The startups that your accelerator sit together, is it helping them because they're from the same community, of the Arab community? Or do you think it will be better for them to mix up with, startups, Jewish startups, and to do a mix together, not just the same community?
Well, our entrepreneurs are all at their mid-career. They have all, let's say, 10 to 15 years working in the IT, and they are still working in the IT. So before they go out of their works and left their jobs and began launching their ideas, we want to be very sure first that the idea is really promising and it has the potential, the economic potential to run. So we usually wait till they have the first seed investment from grants from the Chief Scientist Office or investors, angels, and so on. So our model is to work together, to have all the time mentors and coaches. Some of them become partners also in the startup itself. For example, for one startup, it's called Mendolive. We have two partners. We have now two partners from 200 working in the cyber field. Another one have a chairman who was once the CEO of Voltaire before Mellanox bought it. So we are all the time trying to have this engagement between the Arabs and the Jewish. And from the other hand, we are trying all the time to work like, in what we call it in hybrid model, to be in Nazareth, to have the startups in Nazareth, but to work also all the time in Tel Aviv, so they can be part of the ecosystem, they can know the people, to have the network, the right networks, and to scale up from there.
Otherwise it won't help if you don't come to Tel Aviv from itself?
Well, I tried for 2 or 3 years to have all the events in Nazareth, and to do a lot of events like Breakfast with Angels, speed interviews, partnership for success, whatever. But to bring the angels and the VCs to Nazareth, it's usually difficult, and all the angels have this, let's say, point of view. If you are far from me, from my office, 2 blocks, I can't invest in you. So you have to be near me. So because of that, we have to find the ways also to have, or to be here in Tel Aviv all the time.
You can bring him to Italy, to Maurizio, maybe.
One way. They have a big accelerator now, I hear, from at the Vatican, right? The Vatican have launched a new accelerator. No, I heard about it.
I wanted to ask you about, we didn't talk about women. How many women entrepreneurs do you have in your programs?
Well, the last accelerator we launched, it was before 1 month, and it's subsidized by maybe the US Embassy. The condition was that each startup has to have a woman as a co-founder. And we succeeded doing that. We have now 10 startups like this that women are running it. Most of them are PhD, have PhD from the Technion, and they were trying now to help them, to launch their ideas to have their startups.
I want to say something about women. It's a very important question. We see from the applications we get, 40% of the applications are women, which is an amazing high percentage of women. I know that in the general population, less than 1% of the applications are women, and we have 40%. And inside our accelerator, in the first class, we have 7 companies. 3 of them, the CEO is women. 3 out of 7, which we don't have a condition by the US MAPI. It just happened because they are good. And I believe that this is the highest level of percentage of women all over Israel. Correct me if I'm wrong, 3 out of 7, it's a very high level, it's a high percentage. You have 10 out of 10. Okay, so Fadi is number 1, we are number 2. And we believe, in the Ultra-Orthodox community, women are leading the revolution. We have about 10,000 women, Ultra-Orthodox women in the high-tech industry. Part of them working, part of them have the ability to work, the search for work. And we see that women in the Ultra-Orthodox community, they lead the revolution, and we believe very much in the Haredi women.
So you're at Marav, what's the condition in AOL?
I think we're good. We have right now 3 startups with female CEOs. And AOL also has a fund that invests in startups, a fund out of New York invests in startups that have at least 1 female entrepreneur.
Not just in Israel, in
general, yeah. I think though the issue is on the investment side. Women having harder time raising money. If you look at I just heard a fascinating lecture from a Harvard Business School professor who is researching this topic in the Silicon Valley, and his numbers are mind-blowing. So he mapped every VC partner since the 70s till today in the Silicon Valley. Name, marital status, kids, etc. 77% of the VCs in the Valley never, ever had a female VC on their team. And numbers now are about 6% female VCs. And so I think the problem is, one, we don't get enough applications from female entrepreneurs, but also they're having a hard time raising money. It's an issue. A lot of times female entrepreneurs, they deal with, that if you look at e-commerce numbers, and women are the main shoppers, right? So a lot of the startups are in the areas that women know well, and the problems they are suffering from and they want to solve, but then they come to those VCs where there is no female on the team, and the team just doesn't understand what they're talking about, and they don't think it's going to be big enough, and only the ones that have the right connections and the enough stamina are able to raise money, and then VCs come back and say, hey, we want to join, and it's a big issue. I hear it from a lot of female entrepreneurs.
Maurizio or Ria, you want to add something about your female entrepreneurs and your programs?
Yeah, so we are a farm, so we are now about 600 animals, and that's different. So we have students program, we have people apply for startups, we have people working for corporates, but we have in the past years an increasing number of females. They are teams by all girls. They're great. I think we are incentive. We want to have more girls, especially consider that some of the domains we have in Italy is related to design and fashion. So fashion tech, it's pretty open to girls. And we had in the last class, I think, 3 companies. There was all girls. And in the next program, I think we have 50% are girls. So, and we work very well with girls. So hopefully also the returns. Let's go invest on women.
Okay, cool. Rian, you have something there?
About numbers, we've had over 40% women entrepreneurs in our last cycle, and I have to say that working with the women entrepreneurs is a lot of the time easier. They're doing everything faster, more organized, and they're usually, from my experience, better entrepreneurs. And we really like working with them. We don't have a condition, we don't have a quota. but luckily we get the opportunity to meet and to work with a lot of female entrepreneurs.
Okay, so this is the headline, they're better. Okay? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Appreciate it.